Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss another important topic in organization behavior, that is learning. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss what is learning, various features of learning, principles of learning, various theories related to the learning process, factors affecting learning, and various applications of learning. So, to start with, what is learning? Learning is any relative permanent change in behavior brought about by experience or practice. When people learn anything, some part of their brain is physically changed to record what they have learned. So, we can say learning is any permanent change in behavior of a person that occurs as a result of experience. It is accompanied by acquisition of knowledge, skills, expertise, which are relatively permanent. Here, the permanent word is very important. So, we can say an individual reacts to any situation or responds to instructions in a particular fashion, and that fashion or the style in which he or she is going to respond is caused due to learning. Learning brings permanent change in human behavior that occurs as a result of experience. Learning is a lifelong process in which new behaviors are acquired. We cannot see learning, but we can see changed behavior as a consequence of learning. Now we see what are the various features of learning. Now, first feature is learning involves change in behavior. Whenever you learn something, that can be seen in your behavior. So, the change may be good or bad from organization point of view. For example, you may learn bad habits, prejudice, etc. may be learned by an individual. But those positive or negative behavioral changes that can be seen in their behavior. Second feature is change in behavior must be relatively permanent. The change in behavior should be permanent. To constitute learning, change should be relatively permanent. Temporary changes may only be reflective and fail to represent any learning. This rules out behavioral changes caused by fatigue or drugs. Suppose we say any worker is feeling fatigue, or he is habitual of taking drugs, and because of that fatigue or drug his behavior changes, but that behavioral change is not a permanent change. It will last long only up to the time when effect of drug is there. So that those changes which are due to fatigue or drugs, they are purely temporary in nature, and those cannot be termed as a learning. Third is the change in behavior should occur as a result of experience, practice, or training. It implies that behavior caused from maturity, disease, or physical damages does not constitute learning, because we know that the learning is only as a result of any experience, any practice, any training, and the changes due to disease or any physical damage, that is not due to any of these. That is not because of experience, that is not because of practice, or that is not because of some specific training. Next feature is the practice or experience must be reinforced in order for learning to occur. It means if reinforce doesn't accompany the practice or experience, the behavior will eventually disappear. Here reinforce means सुदृढ़, मजबूती से. So if experience or practice that is not fully strong, or it is not fully reinforced in a particular manner, then the corresponding behavioral change, they may disappear. And if those changes disappear, then that cannot be termed as a part of learning. So we can say those behavioral changes due to practice or experience should be permanent in nature. Then only we can say that as a part of learning. Next point is learning is reflected in behavior. Whatever we learn, it may be positive learning or it may be a negative learning. That is always reflected in our behavior, how we are going to respond in a particular situation, how we respond in crisis. That can be seen in our behavior during that time. So we can say a change in an individual's thought process or attitudes not accompanied by behavior is non-learning. So these are the 5 main features of the learning that we should know. Now we should go across various learning principles. First principle is training must be motivated to learn. Now here a very important part of motivation comes, that is whomsoever we are training, those students, employees, worker should be properly motivated towards that training program, towards that learning program. Then only they will be benefited from that particular training or workshop or seminar, and then we can say that is a part of learning. So we can say an employee must see a purpose in learning the information presented and have a clear understanding of what is presented. If these 2 factors are considered, there will be a greater chance of satisfaction. So while giving a training to any person, that person or worker or employee should be informed clearly about the matter that is to be presented to them, and that material or information should be related to their job. Then only the training may be treated as a part of learning. Second, information must be meaningful. The training material must relate to the purpose of training program, or it will stop being a motivator. The material should be presented in a sequential manner and should provide a variety to prevent boredom or fatigue. The material can be presented through case studies, lectures, films, seminars, demo lectures, etc. So it is very important that whatever you are going to present as a source of information to the employees or the workers or the trainees, that information should be meaningful. Third principle is learning must be reinforced. Learning must be reinforced. In an organization, both positive and negative reinforcement should be used. If behavior is undesirable, the negative reinforcement such as denial of pay raise, promotion or transfer can be effective. Now, these negative reinforcement are only when we see undesirable behavior in the employees or the workers or the trainees. Then only they can be reinforced to these negative aspects. We can deny to increase the pay of any particular person whose behavior is totally undesirable or against the organization. We can stop their promotion. We can transfer them from one department to another, or maybe to one unit to another unit, depending upon their severity of undiscipline, which is totally undesirable. However, during orientation and training period, positive reinforcement is more effective than negative reinforcement, because positive reinforcement is only the technique by which we can properly motivate and encourage them to work effectively and timely, tactfully to achieve organizational and self goals. Next learning principle is organization of material. Now, whatever material we are providing them, that should be organized in a proper and in professional manner. Trainers must remember that well-organized material will help the trainees to remember that the things taught to him. A complete outline of whole course should be made with the main topic included under each heading. Before any start of any training program, each and every participant should be informed about what will be the content of the training program, what will be the schedule of the training program, timing, and all necessary aspect of training. It may be also be possible that we may tell what, for how much time we are going to have our hand-on session, for how much time we are having our theory classes, for how much time we are having tea break or lunch break. These all aspects should be clearly informed to the trainees before they come to the training program. The training materials should be distributed among trainees well in advance, so that they may come prepared in the lectures, understand operations quickly, and remove their doubts by asking questions from the instructor or the supervisor or from the person who is teaching them. Next very important principle is feedback on learning. Feedback. People like to know how much they have learned and how well they are doing. The sooner employees know the result of a quiz test, the sooner they can assess their progress. Self-graded tests and programmed learning kits provide the necessary feedback to a person on his progress on a particular subject or area. So, feedback includes the points which will tell what was taught during the training program, what was what were the main strength of the training program, what were the weaknesses, so that in the next training program those negative aspects or the negative points can be removed and a more informative and modified training schedule can be framed for the workers or the employees or the trainees. Now we are going to see what are the various factors affecting learning. Now there are various factors which are going to affect individuals' learning. One is motivation. The amount of motivation, whether the trainee or the training program content, are those training content are motivating for the employees, or our trainees are well motivated to go through this particular program. If they are well motivated, then we can see very effective changes in their behavior after their training program, and that will enhance the productivity and will help in personal growth and also organizational growth. Second factor is mental setup. Mental setup of the employees also. Employees here means trainees, and also mental setup of the trainer also. Next point is practice. The contents or the training schedule should be practiced as per the schedule provided to the employees, and it should be well organized. And after that training, it should be repetitive. It should go, each and every employee should keep on practicing on those techniques or the procedure taught during the training program. Also, nature of learning material is also going to affect the learning process, and the environment in which training is being provided to the employees. Environment during the training, after the training is very much important in the process of learning. So these are some of the factors which are going to be the very important factor in a process of learning. Now we are going to see some theories of learning, and these theories of learning are classical conditioning, operant conditioning, cognitive learning, and social learning. These four theories are most important theories of learning, and now we are going to see these one by one. First is classical conditioning. Now, this classical conditioning deals with the association of one event with another desired event, resulting in a desired behavior of or learning. This theory was given by Ivan Pavlov, a famous Nobel Prize winning psychologist. Now, what he did, Pavlov conducted an experiment on a dog to study the relation between dog salivation and ringing of bell. When he presented a piece of meat to the dog, he noticed a great deal of salivation. He called the food as unconditional response. In this time, that piece of meat, in response of which dog starts salivating, that food is termed as unconditional response. During the second stage, he merely rang the bell, but the dog did not salivate in response to ringing of the bell. In this time, he does not offer any meat to the dog. He just rang the bell, and the dog did not salivate in response of ringing the bell. He subsequently introduced the sound of the bell each time the meat was given to the dog. In the third case, what he did, along with the food, he also produced a bell sound each time the meat or the food is provided to the dog. Thus, eventually the dog learned to salivate in response to ringing of the bell, even when there was no meat. So, from that time, the dog start to salivate in response of only ringing of the bell, even though we are not providing the dog the meat or the food. This is how Pavlov conditioned the dog to respond to learned stimulus. Now, here we are having 4 components of classical conditioning. I will tell you these 4 classical conditioning components with an example. Initially, what is there? First component is unconditional stimulus, a stimulus that elicits a response without training. Second is conditional stimulus, a stimulus that elicits a response because it has been repeatedly paired with an unconditional stimulus. Third is unconditional response, an innate response elicited by an unconditional stimulus, usually either a reflex or an emotional response. Last but not the least, fourth component of classical conditioning is conditioned response, term used to refer to a reflex response after learning. This is after learning has occurred to elicit the response by a conditioned stimulus. Now, we are going to see these 4 components with an example which is based on Pavlov experiment on dog. Now, as we see the Pavlov experiment, first is this is before conditioning. Now here we are having a food, and in response to this food the dog starts salivating. Now this food is unconditional stimulus, and this response by the dog is unconditional response. This is before conditioning, before any conditioning or before any learning provided to the dog. Now we see in the second part of this diagram before conditioning. Now here the dog is not provided with any food, it is only provided with the sound of a bell. This sound of a bell here is natural stimulus. Now in response to this natural stimulus, there is no salivation in the dog. and this no salvation in the dog before conditioning is termed as no condition response. In the third diagram, we see during conditional now in this third part we see during conditioning. Now this is during learning process. The conditioning of this dog is under progress. Now in this we see there is a bell and plus dog. Whenever we are providing the food to the dog, we are also ringing a bell simultaneously, and in response to this, these two combinedly occurring events, the dog is going to respond, and the response is salivation, and this is something, this salivation is unconditional response by the dog. Now as we know, this is the conditioning process or learning process, and after this happens, after the dog has learned, whenever there is sound of bell, my master will provide me food. So after this learning process over, there is a permanent habitual change in dog's behavior, and in this fourth figure we see what will happen after conditioning. Now in this we see there is no food, only bell is there, and because earlier it was conditioned, that the dog was practiced that whenever there is bell, there is food available to him. Now after conditioning, we are only providing the sound of a bell, that is conditional stimulus, and now because dog is conditioned, now it start salivation only in response to the sound of the bell, and this process of salivation only in response to bell sound is termed as conditional response. So the dog has classically conditioned to salivate response to the sound of the bell, and that sound of the bell is the stimulus. It will be seen that the learning can take place amongst animals based on stimulus response SR connections. S here is stimulus, R here is corresponding response to that stimulus. The study was undoubtedly single most famous study ever conducted in behavioral sciences. It was a major breakthrough and had a lasting impact on understanding of learning. Second theory of learning is operant conditioning. Operant conditioning deal with the response stimulus connection. This concept was originated by Skinner. It states that most human behavior operate based on the environment. Learning depends on what happens after the response, and that whatever happening after the response here termed as the consequences. The learning of voluntary behavior through the effect of present or unpresent response. Now in this operant condition of learning, we are going to see the learning behavior depending upon present or unpresent responses. Now we see in this table, the left hand side is operant conditioning, and these are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment and negative punishment. Now in positive reinforcement, we see what is the meaning of this positive reinforcement. It means we are going to add or increase a pleasant stimulus, and the resultant of this positive reinforcement is behavior is strengthened. We can have an example of this. We can see the example given. Here, this positive reinforcement can be easily understood by an example: giving a student a prize after he gets A on the test. Now, because of this positive reinforcement, and we are going to increase the strength, we are going to increase the behavioral strength of that particular student, and this will make him to understand that, or it will help or motivate him to keep motivated and keep doing best to achieve A grade or better than this. So this is something positive reinforcement. Second is negative reinforcement. It means reduce or remove an unpleasant stimulus. And this also, the outcome of negative reinforcement is also behavior is strengthened. Now we can see, for an example, taking painkiller that eliminate pain increases the likelihood that you will take painkillers again. Now, although we say this is a negative reinforcement because, and behavior is strengthened, because if we keep taking painkiller, although we are going to eliminate our pain, but on the other hand, the negative effect will be we become habitual to those type of medicine, those type of painkiller. Whenever we are having pain, we feel that those painkiller will make us feeling well, and that become a habit of ours, that we every time we are having pain in our body, we will take painkiller. This is something negative reinforcement. Then positive punishment, although we are saying punishment, but that is a positive punishment. It means present or add an unpleasant stimulus. We are going to have positive, we are having a punishment, but we are going to punishment in what terms? We are going to add unpleasant stimulus. This is going to, what will the outcome of this? Behavior is weakened. For example, giving a student extra homework after he or she misbehaves in the class. Now this is a punishment for a particular student who is misbehaving in the class. But why we are saying it a positive? Because we are providing him extra homework, and because of that extra homework, he or she is going to learn something extra, and that is going to enhance his learning. Negative punishment, that is reduce or remove a pleasant stimulus. Now here in positive punishment we are going to add an unpleasant stimulus, and in negative punishment we are going to reduce or remove pleasant stimulus. The result is same, behavior is weakened. For example, taking away teen's computer after he misses curfew, or after he fails to achieve some targets. So this is something negative punishment. We are removing a pleasant stimulus here for this student. That computer was a pleasant stimulus, and we are taking that away from him. That is why that is negative punishment. Next theory of learning is cognitive learning. Here, cognitive refers to an individual ideas, thoughts, knowledge, interpretations, understanding, etc. about himself and his environment. The theory states that when people observe a model performing a behavior and consequences of that behavior, they remember the sequence of events and use this information to guide subsequent. Cognitive theory. This was given by Stallman. Their theory consists of relationship between environment, cognitive, and expectation. Now, he performed an experiment with the rat that we can see there is some end point and the rat has to follow this irregular path to reach to the destination. So he found that the rat could run through the critical path with particular intention of getting food, because the rat knows that at the end of this path I am provided with food, so this dog is going to run through this critical path with the intention to achieving food. So there is a goal and objective with the rat. This theory was later applied on human resources where incentives were related to higher performance. Next is social learning. Social learning theory is extension of operant condition. The view that we learn through both observation and direct experience is called the social learning. Now, this social learning is behavioral approach. It deals with learning process based on direct observation and experience achieved while interacting with individuals. In this process, people observe any situation, alter, and even construct a particular environment to fit in the social behavioral pattern. Now, as we see in this particular figure, a person is following a grass cutting machine and a child is closely observing how this particular person is cutting the grass with the machine. He is observing it, then he is going to learn how that particular person is behaving, and after learning he will start cutting grass himself, and with the repetitive practice of cutting grass he will learn how to cut the grass with this particular tool or the machine. This is something social learning. This can be further explained with the help of this slide. Here we see learning. Here in the social learning theory, it involves basically 4 steps. One is attention. Attention means to focus on something or someone. Whatever that another person is doing, that particular person is closely seeing the activity done by that particular person. Then retention. Retention means to store information from the observed behavior. In this, the trainee observe the another person, and whatever that another person is performing, the procedure and the way that way or procedure is being stored, or that information is being stored in trainee's mind, that is something retention. Reproduction, to perform the observed behavior. Now, whatever the information stored in the mind of the trainee by seeing another person performing a job, now depending upon that stored information, that trainee is going to reproduce that activity, and that is something reproduction. Next is motivation. To be motivated to imitate the modeled behavior. Now, in this, he keep on performing that particular activity because he is being motivated to do it, and in this repetitive reproduction of the activity, that trainee is going to learn the whole process effectively. This is something social learning. Now we are going to discuss some strategies of reinforcement. Reinforcement may be defined as anything that both increases the strength of response and tend to induce repetitions of behavior that precedes the reinforcement. Now we can see reinforcement as positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Now we are going to see what are these one by one. Positive reinforcement is a reward or other desirable consequence that follow a particular behavior or activity. It is used to increase the frequency of action or behavior. The words like excellent, good job, very creative, you did it, great improvement, wow, perfect, 100%. These are some of the words which show positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement take place when individuals learn to escape or avoid from unpleasant consequences. For example, people learn to drive carefully to avoid accident. Now this is negative reinforcement, because though they doesn't want that accident may occur, that is why to avoid those accidents they are going to learn driving. This is something negative reinforcement. Next is punishment. Punishment is a mean of reducing a desired behavior by introducing a potentially undesirable consequence. Here, two factors are very important, that is desired behavior, reducing a desired behavior, and second is potentially undesirable consequences. Now desired behavior and particular this can be understood by, suppose we want to punish any employee because he or she doesn't act as per the organizational rules, and that punishment may be in terms of cutting salary, his or her termination, loss of privileges of and layoffs. So these are the punishments. We are going to cut down their salary because of their undesired behavior. Another is extinction. Extinction is an effective method of controlling undesirable behavior. It is based on principle that if a response is not reinforced, it will eventually disappear. This can be understood with an example. A disruptive employee who fights and is punished by the supervisor for doing so many continue the disruptions because of attention they bring. By ignoring the employee, attention is withheld and also the motivation for fighting. Now the last topic of our lecture is application of learning and organization behavior modification. First is use of lotteries to reduce absenteeism. Attractive prizes can be included in a lottery. Absenteeism reduced to a large extent and workers displayed a sense of responsibility that lead to increased productivity and higher job satisfaction. Second point is work pay versus sick pay. If sick leave can be converted into payment of bonus up to a certain extent, the employees would choose to avail of financial benefit and would not absent themselves under the pretext of being sick. This will improve satisfaction level of the employees and would not hamper productivity also. Next is training and development. Train to adopt new working atmosphere. Whatever new technologies are coming, whatever new changes are there in the environment on local and national or international level, to adopt those changes and to change themselves according to the current scenario. Employees should be properly trained, motivated, and developed. Next is mentoring programs. Mentor needs display model behaviors so that subordinates emulate them. Mentors should ensure to develop sense of responsibility among the subordinates who should be able to take higher jobs and work for the organization. They are expected to develop positive attitude towards subordinates. This can be achieved by full dedication on the part of both mentor and the trainee. Next is discipline. In any organization, be it production incentive or service sector, managers should insist that all his subordinates strictly follow the timing of the work, dress code, display counters behavior, display courteous behavior when interacting with others, and accomplish their assigned task on time. Defaulters should be dealt with strictly, and any lethargy in program implementation will not bring behavior modification. And the last is self-management. Regulating various activities and achievements of personal as well as organizational goals would be easier in an environment of self-managed organization. So these are some of the application of learning and organizational modification which we have studied, and here we conclude our lecture. For further query or any doubt on this particular topic, you are requested to contact me on my mail ID khatak1977@yahoo.co.in or khataknista1977@gmail.com. You may also contact me personally on my mobile number 98121 79804. That's all for today. Have a nice day.